image to work with, we'll begin tracing this image in Illustrator to create vector-based artwork. This is a common technique to use when creating artwork in Illustrator, where instead of drawing art from scratch, you use an image as a reference. Now, the first thing we need to do here is we need to give ourselves a layer in which we can draw, because previously we converted layer 1 to the template layer, which is currently locked. So down here at the bottom, I'm going to hold down the Option key or the Alt key, and I'm going to click on the Create New Layer button, and that gives me the ability to give this layer a name right away. So I'm going to call this layer Guitar, because that's mainly what I'm going to do on this layer. So I'll go ahead and click OK, and now we have a layer in which we can work. Now I'm going to start by zooming in, and we're going to be focusing here on the guitar body. That's what we want to draw first. And I'm not super concerned with being absolutely precise here. We just want to create a general representation of this guitar. Now, for the guitar body, you can see this is made up of a bunch of curves. And the best way to draw curves in Illustrator is using the pen tool. So I'm going to go ahead and close the layers panel for now, and I'm going to grab my pen tool. Now, the pen tool is incredibly powerful, but it does take some practice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this, and you can follow along with me as I draw. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my Smart Guide. So I'll go to the View menu, and I'll just uncheck Smart Guides. And so as I'm looking at this guitar, what you want to look at is the curves that you have here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start maybe right about here. And you might know from previous videos that if you just click with the pen tool, you're going to create a corner point, and it's only going to draw straight lines. So for example, over here, if I just kind of click, 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 it's only drawing straight lines, which is really not what I'm looking for right now. So I'm just going to press delete a couple times to get rid of that. To draw curves, what I need to do is I need to click and drag. So I'm going to start right about here, and by pulling out a directional handle, you're going to see that as I move my pen tool, it wants to draw a curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my cursor down to about here, and I'm going to click and drag. And what you want to do is you want to bend that curve into position. Okay? Now, while still holding down the mouse, right, I haven't let go yet, I can hold down the Alt or Option key, and I'm going to make this handle a little bit shorter. And then I'll let go of my mouse. You can see it's starting to draw this shape. Now, it's going to fill this shape, and that's going to get annoying. So I'm just going to come over here and click on the fill indicator, and then click none so that it's not filling this shape anymore. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my cursor right about here, and I'm going to click and drag, and you can see that I can now bend this into position. I'm going to move my cursor right about here. I'm going to click and drag, and you start to get the hang of this, because as I drag, you can bend it left to right, you can move this left to right, and you can drag it longer or shorter, and you just want to get the combination to get the curve that you're looking for. Now I'm going to hold down my space bar to reposition this, and now what I can do is I can move down here, and I'm going to maybe go right about here and click and drag, and I'm going to try to bend that into position. Now don't worry if you don't get it perfect. I don't get it perfect every time either, and so we can go back and tweak this in a little bit. And then I'll move my cursor down to about here, click and drag, and I'm just bending this into position. Reposition this, I'm just kind of, and even though I'm not going to use all of this body shape, I'm still going to draw it. And that gives me the ability to, tweak it and adjust it later on. So I'll click maybe right about here, click and drag, and again, I'm just bending that line segment into position. Move my cursor up here, click and drag a little bit to bend that into position. And then when you're finished, now you'll notice that here, this is probably not going to be perfect, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key as I click on the starting point, and you'll see that circle. and that's telling me it's going to complete the path. So while holding down Alt or Option, I'm going to click and drag, and that way I can finish that last line segment and get it where I want it to be. And once I've clicked, I've now completed the path. I've created a closed path. Now here's some tips for adjusting what you've drawn. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit because I didn't get this perfect, and you won't either. But if you hold down Command or Control, you can click on an anchor point, and that's going to show you the handles that are controlling these line segments. And now if you hold down the Alt key, you can click on this directional handle, and what I need to do here is I need to shorten that or tweak it a little bit to get the curve that I'm looking for, right? So here I'm a little off. I'll Command or Control click on this anchor point, and then holding down the Option key, I'm going to drag this to make it a little bit wider. See what I'm doing here? Command click on this anchor point, and now I can start adjusting it. The other option you have is you can hold down Command as you drag these, but this is going to adjust both halves of that anchor point. So I'll just undo that. And in this case, I think what I'm going to do is use the Option key, and then I can click on this and try to tweak this. And in this case, I think what I might have done, I can Command click on this anchor point. You can actually click and drag to reposition that anchor point too. And that'll help you to tweak this, the way you're trying to get this to go. So down here I'm a little bit off, so I'll Command click on that. And it looks like I need to go in both ways, so I'm just going to try and adjust that. Maybe I'll use the Alt key and just kind of pull that in. And again, I'm not concerned with getting this totally perfect. I'm just trying to get it pretty close. That's looking pretty good. I think I'm okay with this. And that's how you would adjust, these line segments as you're working here. So I think that looks pretty good. Now what I'll do is grab the selection tool, and I can now fill this with a color. Now here's a little tip. If you want to fill this with the same color used in the guitar, you can actually grab your eyedropper tool, and that's this guy down here. And if I shift click and click on the guitar image, it'll actually fill my shape with that color. So that's one way that you can make that work. So that looks pretty good. And in my layers panel, what I'll do is I'll open the guitar layer, and I'll double click on this path, and I'll call this guitar body, right? So now we're identifying things as they are. Now, for now, I'm just going to turn off the visibility so I can see the rest of this. And I'm going to go ahead and grab the rectangle tool. Let's get rid of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag to draw a rectangle from top to bottom. And I'm just going to match the neck width down here. And we'll change the color of that. Maybe we'll make that pretty dark. I think that looks pretty good. And now what you can do, if you click and hold on the scale tool, you can grab the shear tool. And with the shear tool, you can control like the point of transformation. So I'm going to click down here on the bottom of the neck. And then if I come up here, I can click and drag. Now by default, what's going to happen is it's going to shear this, left to right. And that's not exactly what I want to do with the neck of the guitar here. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my direct selection tool, and I'm going to click on this anchor point, and I'm going to shift click on that anchor point. And now if I go back to the scale tool, I'm going to set the point of transformation down here. I'm going to click at the bottom of the neck here. And what that's going to allow me to do is if I click out here and start dragging to the right and hold down the shift key, you can see that I'm only scaling the top portion of the neck. And what I want to do is match the width, at least approximately, of the neck up there at the top. And now I have a proportionally scaled, neck for the guitar. And I think that's going to work out pretty well. So let's go ahead and rename that guy. I'll call this guitar neck. And that's starting to look pretty good. You will not become a pen tool expert overnight, but the more you practice, the better you get. And from experience, I can tell you that the pen tool is one of the most useful tools you can master, because you'll find the pen tool in Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, and other Adobe applications as well.